Hey there, it's Lara and Nigella back again with your weekly astrology video. She just hopped up here right before I hit record. So this one's for the week of April 7th to the 13th, 2021. Thanks for being here. It is a gray day here and the lighting is driving me a bit bonkers. So if it's off, I apologize, but I'm trying to figure it out. Every week is an experiment. So I'm really glad you're here. We're going to talk about the new moon in Aries that's happening on the weekend, on Sunday, April 11th, to be exact. And we've talked a lot about Aries in the last few videos because there's a lot going on in Aries, right? We have still the sun in Aries, and we've got Chiron there, and we have Mercury there, and we have Venus there. And then obviously the moon will be joining all of those planets for the new moon on the weekend, like I said. So that's where we're going to focus our attention. Right now, the moon is in Pisces and the moon is waning. So she's in her waning phase, meaning, we had that full moon and about a week and a half ago, and now she is appearing to be smaller, right? Moving to the crescent moon phase and then eventually the new moon in Aries. And so when the moon is waning, so too can our energy. We may feel, a waning moon is for wrapping things up. It's for winding things down, right? And so when we, if we're particularly tuned into the moon cycles, then we may also feel like we're losing steam a little. And that's okay. That's normal, right? We can't be all on all the time. So try to work with that as best you can. Obviously, life and people have obligations and work and family and all the things to do. But if you can take a little bit more time for, rest and sort of preparing for the new moon, then that's a good use of this time. So, and of course you can go over to my website, download my free guide to working with the moon if you haven't done that yet, right? And the link to that is always below. So on Saturday the 10th, the moon will move out of Pisces and into Aries, and that will be when we're in the dark moon phase, right? Just as the moon, when we can't see the moon in the sky, she's considered in her dark phase. And so that's really when we might find we're really lagging. We need some more rest, some more sleep, that kind of thing, some extra coffee, So, and that's the time in the darkness when those seeds of intention are planted, right? And we're going to talk about intention a little bit today in this video. So, and then after the new moon on the 11th, the moon will move off into Taurus on Monday. So before we talk specifically about the new moon, I just want to touch on one other point, and that is the fact that on April 5th, so that would have been Monday, Mars crossed over the degree in Gemini where the solar eclipse on June 10th is going to be. So we're heading into eclipse season, right? There's going to be a couple of eclipses late May and in June. And there's going to be a solar eclipse in Gemini on the 19th of June. On the 10th of June at 19 degrees of Gemini. So Mars just triggered that point. So take note, if you know your chart in particular and you know the house that Gemini sits for you, take note of what's been transpiring as it relates to those Gemini themes in your chart. And it might clue you in as to, what the eclipse has in store for you. So I just wanted to clue you into that. And now let's dive into the new moon. I want to remind you to go back and listen to last week's video in particular, if you haven't yet, because it's very relevant still to what's going on now and for the next couple of weeks, right? We're in this, as I said last week, this window of opportunity where we've got some really good energy for getting shit done. And we have some support for that. And so we've got and that's because last week I focused on Mercury in Aries. Sorry, I have to get it all straight in my head. Mercury in Aries in a sextile with Mars in uh, Gemini, right? Mars and Gemini. Yes, Mars and Gemini. I had to look at the chart. So I focused on that last week. And we still have that energy playing out. And we have a lot of, there's some interesting conversations going on with this new moon that involve support. And then there's a little bit of tension too. So we're going to break all that down, right? I'm going to actually show you the chart right now before we do that. So here's the chart for the new moon on the 11th. So we've got this pileup, right? A stellium of planets in Aries. There's Chiron, there's Mercury, there's the sun and the moon, who will be exactly together at the time of that new moon at 22 degrees of Aries. Because a new moon is always when the sun and the moon come together to birth something new, right? And then we also have Venus there. And, you know, Venus is within about 4 degrees of the sun and the moon. And we've also got Venus here in an exact square with Pluto up here at 26 Capricorn. So that's the tension piece. And then we have these sextiles, right, to Jupiter and to Mars going on as well. So, and there's Mars down there in Gemini with the North Node. So that's the chart that I wanted to show you. And let's talk now about the new moon. I don't know if I said this already. The lighting's a bit wonky because it's gray out and I'm trying to get things. Every week is a new adventure. so bear with me if it looks weird. All right. So the new moon is Sunday, April 11th at about 10:30 p.m. That's Eastern time. So you can adjust accordingly for wherever you are at 22 degrees of Aries, which is a cardinal fire sign. If you remember, the cardinal signs are the signs that are the initiators in the zodiac, right? They mark the beginning of the 4 seasons. So an Aries season, right, when the sun moves into Aries, 0 degrees Aries, that marks the equinox. So we're entering the spring season in the northern hemisphere. And fall in the south, right? So this is really, when we've got the new moon in Aries, it's really the time when that freshness starts to come into our awareness. And that's what's happening, right? And it's really the time to plant the seeds of intention for what we want to grow. You know, a lot of people like to use the word manifest. I think it's overly used, but it does get the job done. So whatever we want to grow or manifest in the Aries area of our charts. And I'm going to tell you what those themes are for you specifically as we get later on in the video. And this may, like I kind of touched on this already, but it may sound like a bit of a similar conversation in some ways to last week, because we were talking about the sextiles to the planets in Aries, right? Specifically, we focused on the Mars-Mercury piece last week, but this time we're going to bring Jupiter into the picture, Jupiter in Aquarius. And also, I'm going to tell you a bit about the moon cycle as a whole and where we're at in the Aries moon cycle. And so I'm going to give you like sort of some key points in time in the short term and then in the longer term to keep your eyes on. So let's do that now. Why don't we do that now? We'll start there. So in short terms, right? We think of moon cycles as the monthly cycle. So when we have a new moon, whatever we initiate at a new moon, we look to where we want that, like what do we want to grow in the short term? So in terms of the next 2 weeks when we'll have a full moon. So the full moon in the month. So what do we want in the short term? You know, we're gonna think about what we're planting now and what we're going to accomplish within the short 2 week time frame, right? What we're going to grow and put our efforts and our energies into. So that is in 2 weeks time. April 26th, we will have the full moon in Scorpio. So between now and then, you know, in terms of what you're planting now, what do you want to see? Where do you want to see it grow to in that short time frame? And then, oh, see you later. Then think about it in sort of 6 month intervals. So, and that's because, right, you know, we're going to plant our seeds of intention in terms of the Aries house of our chart, right? And those themes surrounding Aries and the house that sits for us personally. And then over 6 months time, what are we going to grow? What do we want to see fruit by the time that the moon is full in Aries in 6 months, which will be October 20th. The full moon in Aries this year is October 20th. So between now, this new moon on April 11th, and the full moon in Aries on the 20th, what balls are in play? What are we going to do between now and then to get us, you know, closer to what we intended? So there's that time frame. And then in longer terms than that, even, this new moon is the initiation point of a 2.5-year lunar cycle, right? In relation to Aries and the themes that Aries speaks to for us personally. Like, obviously, Aries covers, we've talked a lot about Aries in the last few videos, so I don't want to belabor this, but definitely go back and listen to those, especially the one I did on the Aries season when the sun moved into Aries, the equinox point, and then last week as well. But, you know, Aries is the warrior of the zodiac, and the one who, in ideal terms, is the pioneer, the brave, courageous, me first, I'll go first kind of energy, right? Aries is fire. And I've spoken about Aries before as it's like that, because it's the first fire sign, it's the spark, right, that gets the blaze going kind of thing. But sometimes what can happen is, you know, I think of that lyric, it's better to burn out than fade away, right? And sometimes Aries thinks that way. So it's just full bore right out of the gate and then loses steam because all the energy was used up in the initial sort of combustion. So we don't want that to happen. But Aries can give us the confidence boost, the boost to our courage. Aries is independent energy, right? It's about what is good for me. And sometimes that's important to focus on. Of course, not to the extreme though. You know, on the downside, Aries can be a little bit too self-focused, a little selfish, could be also too impulsive and aggressive, right? Too warlike and combative. So that's Aries in a nutshell. And so we're talking about, you know, when we're planting seeds of intention, metaphorically speaking, at this new moon, we think about those themes. How can I embrace the really positive qualities of Aries, right? And then what area of our specific birth chart is that sitting in? So what house is Aries in for you, for me, for all of us, right? Depending on your personal birth details. And so you look at that and you say, okay, well, these are the themes that this house encompasses. So let's bring that into the equation. These are the themes I'm working with. This is where I'm planting new seeds of intention that I want to grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years in this case. So getting back to that, what I was saying is that this particular cycle in Aries that's being initiated, this moon cycle, culminates in like the summer of 2023, right? So think longer term as well with your intentions, you know, sort of scaffold, if you know what I mean. Like, what do I want to grow in the short term, then sort of mid-range, 6 months, and then over time. So that's the way to look at this. And I'm going to speak, like I said, I'm going to speak a little bit about what you can do. Some people ask me this sometimes, well, how do I set intentions, or would you have any recommendations? What I do? And there's all kinds of ways of doing that. I like to keep it simple, and truth be told, like, we lead busy lives and we don't always have time for all the bells and whistles and a big hoopla. So sometimes, you know, and then what can happen with some people, I think, and this has been me in the past, is you think like, I don't have time for some big ritual, or I can't do, I can't take a chunk of time to really focus on this, so I'm just not going to bother at all. And that happens sometimes, but it doesn't have to be a big ordeal, right? So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes here. So we do have the stellium in Aries, and the significant aspects here in terms of this new moon are obviously the sun and the moon coming together in Aries, right, at 22 degrees. And then we have this very close sextile to to Mars and Gemini. And that is within a degree, because Mars and Gemini will be at 23 degrees of Gemini, and the new moon is at 22 degrees. So there's only 1 degree difference there. So it's a close sextile. Remember last week we took some time to focus on what is a sextile, what is that aspect, right? And so sextiles are supportive. When the two planets in a sextile are talking to each other, they're talking to each other in a supportive way. They are, showing each other opportunities. They're helping each other. Last week I used the analogy of, it's like, how friends support each other, kind of thing. Like that's, and sextiles are of this, they're what we call like of the qualities of Venus, right? And so they have that tone to them. Venus is about harmony. It's about beauty. It's about relationship. It's about aesthetic. It's about pleasure, all these things, right? It's about our desires, getting our needs met. So sextiles have that tone to them. And this is what's going on between Mars and the new moon, right? And Mars is the planet that is about our drive and our action and our will and our ambition, and it gives us the oomph, right? So that's good news. We have some oomph behind whatever intentions we want to set here for this new moon. And then we have the new moon also sextile Jupiter, very close to, so within a couple of degrees. Jupiter is at 25 degrees Aquarius, and the new moon again is at 22, so within a few degrees. And Jupiter is also in a sextile, so Jupiter is in this supportive place, in relation to the new moon. Venus and Jupiter are the two benefics. They are the planets that bring us luck and good fortune and harmony and all of those good things. So that's good news in terms of this new moon. Then we have a little bit of a trickier thing going on. We have Venus close to the new moon, as I was showing you on the chart. Venus is at 26 degrees of Aries. So Venus is involved in this conversation as well. But, Venus is, on the one hand, she is in exile, or she's in her fall, not in a place where she's comfortable, because she doesn't really like being in Aries. It's a little prickly in Aries for her. And so she doesn't have all her resources, right? But there are some sextiles here helping her out. But there's also this tension between Venus and Pluto going on at the time of this new moon. And that's because I showed you on the chart, Venus in Aries is in a square, which is a 90-degree angle. It's a conversation of tension with Pluto, who's still in Capricorn, right? Way back in 2020 and 2019, Pluto's been in Capricorn for a while, and then was joined by Saturn and Jupiter, and 2020 happened. And then Saturn and Jupiter moved out of Capricorn and left Pluto there, and that was late December, mid to late December of 2020. and left Capricorn there to keep at this slow, profound transformation in the Capricorn area of our charts. So Pluto is not done there. But by now, we know the story. We know the score. We know what is going on in the Capricorn area of our chart, right? Whatever house Capricorn sits for you, which we talked about a lot in 2020 in particular. And, you know, there's been a long, slow process that's going on. And Pluto is there just really, really continuing to turn the soil. And, excuse me. So what's happening at the time of this new moon is that Venus is having this tense conversation with Pluto. So there can be, at the same time as there's lots of opportunity and, you know, for new starts and lots of help happening in relation to this new moon, there's also a bit of tension that's lingering from whatever has been going on in the Capricorn area, right, of our charts. And so between the Capricorn and the Aries houses for us, because they square each other, we're trying to work something out that's been going on for the long haul. And probably reached a crescendo for us in 2020. And then started to wane, but it's still there. It still hasn't quite, you know, Pluto hasn't quite finished the job yet. And so when Venus and Pluto square off, it can be a bit of a trigger to whatever that thing is for each of us that's been going on, right? But the key with a square is to take action so that you can resolve the tension. Squares, just like Venus is, or sextiles are sort of Venus toned aspects. Squares are Mars toned aspects. So they have that sort of, friction to them is a good word to use. And to resolve that friction or to ease that friction, something's got to give, right? You need to take some action. And, or sometimes what happens is, you know, life happens, something, an external event, not something you necessarily initiated, something that was initiated by somebody else, or some external event happens, and that kind of forces you to deal with whatever it is, whatever the tension is between, in this case, Pluto and Venus, you know, Capricorn and Aries of your chart. So that's going on. And I thought it was important to mention that because this is an exact square. So like the closer in degree these conversations are, the more potent they are, right? So, and if you're somebody that has planets in the cardinal signs at around the 26-degree mark, so the cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, then this Venus Pluto square will no doubt be felt by you. And then the new moon, right? So it's the latter degrees of Aries. So the new moon is at 22 Aries. So if you're somebody that has planets like your sun, your moon, your rising, a cluster of planets, you know, a personal planet like your Venus or your Mars or Mercury, right around 22 degrees of the cardinal signs, specifically Aries, but also Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, then this new moon will be most potent for you, right? That doesn't mean that we all don't have the opportunity to plant some seeds here. It just means that this particular situation, this particular new moon, will be most potent for those folks that I just mentioned. Pardon me. So I think I said this already, but I'm going to say it again, that this is a really powerful, potent week for taking action on, you know, on what we want, and particularly in that sort of Aries house of our chart. And we have some luck on our side, so that's good. So let's talk a little bit about intentions and intention setting. So what you can do is write down, when you finish watching the video, and I'm going to give you a few questions to reflect on here, as I have been doing for the last many weeks. And then I'm going to take it through the signs and tell you what houses are being triggered for you, right? And what house specifically this new moon is happening in for you. And so when you have all that information, you apply it to your own life and your own situation, and you think to yourself, what do I want to initiate at the time of this new moon as it relates to the Aries part of my chart? And so you write those intentions down. And personally, I think, keeping it simple is, if you write a big list of like 25 things you want to do between now and 2 weeks from now, it's not likely that that's the best approach, right? Keep it to like one big thing, or maybe 2 or 3 maximum sort of thing. And write those down, and write it in an affirmative sort of statement. Like, I'm just trying to think about, say you have Aries in the 2nd house, which is about your personal resources. You could set an intention that in the next 2 weeks, I will come up with a new idea for bringing in resources, for making money. I'll brainstorm a bunch of ideas and I'll land on one. That's just one idea for you. So that kind of thing, right? Write down a statement or an intention. And then think about, what can you do to nurture that, to help that grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years. And another thing you could do, if you want to be, if you want to do something like a little bit more than that, even, if you have time to do it, you can actually, and it's a great time of year in the Northern Hemisphere to be doing this anyways, you can plant some seeds, literally plant some seeds, right? Get a pot or wherever you're going to do it, and plant some seeds and nurture them. And because that will remind you of what you are trying to nurture in your life, right? So when you plant those seeds of intention, if you think about, this is symbolic of what I'm intending in relation to this new moon. And then every time you go to water those seeds, or fertilize them or whatever, take care of that plant and watch it grow. It's like you're reminding yourself of that intention. I was having a big conversation with my daughter about this yesterday when we were on our way to get her braces off. So I thought I'd share some of those things with you. And, just like if you neglect, if you plant seeds and you just leave them and you don't do anything with them, you don't water them and you don't give them any sunlight, they die. They don't grow. And you don't manifest a plant, you don't grow anything, right? So that's the same. That's the same with intentions. We still, in this day and age, a lot of us went through that phase, I think, particularly if you've been somebody who's been really into kind of, whatever you want to call it, spirituality, self-help, all of that stuff. It's, I think we, many of us anyways, sort of were in a place where there was a lot of talk about, like, when The Secret came out and all of that stuff. And you just have to kind of like will it or think it, and then it will, or put your energy there. Well, that's only half the equation, sorry to say, but you have to take action, right? You have to do something about it. And so I think that, like, this idea of literally planting seeds and then taking those actions reminds you that you need to take action on the things that you're, that you intended as well. So, and the other thing is that I want to mention to you And I'm, speaking from personal experience, and I recently I was hearing somebody else talk about this in a different way recently, and it sort of reminded me that it's something I wanted to share with you. Don't leak the power of those intentions by telling the whole world right away. I don't know if you've ever had that experience before, but I definitely have, where I've had an idea about something, or I've even been actively working towards something and been super excited about it or whatever, and then I've told everybody, and it takes the piss out of it, if you know what I mean. It kind of like it deflates it. It takes that potency. I'm using that word a lot, but I think it's a good word when we're talking about an Aries new moon too. But and it just it scatters it. It deflates it. So it's like, again, let's use the metaphor of gardening or plants. It's like if you plant something and then every 2 seconds you're digging through the soil to see if there's any roots growing or anything, you're gonna delay at very least the process. You might even kill it. Or if you plant something, say you plant like vegetable plants, right? So you plant some tomatoes or something like that, and you're not going to, well, ideally you're not going to start picking the tomatoes before they're ripe or before they're ready, or you're not going to plant carrots and then pull up all the carrots when they're just like little stringy roots, right? Like it's kind of like, what's the point of that? You went to the effort of planting them, and then you're not letting them bear fruit, so to speak. And so I think that it's most powerful to keep some things to yourself at first, and nurture those things, nurture your intentions. That's not to say like you can't tell anybody anything. It's not, or you can't ask for help if you need it. I don't mean it like that at all. I think that if you need some support or some help, or you want to tell some trusted people who you know are going to be on your side, and that kind of thing, that's definitely good. But you don't need to go announcing it all over social media and telling every person or whatever. Now, that's just my 2 cents and my personal, I'm speaking from personal experience here. So you do you, but I thought I'd share that with you. Okay, so let's go through a few questions that you can reflect on, and I've kept it to a fairly short list this time. So a few questions that you can reflect on in relation to this new moon and the different aspects that are going on, and then I've given you something to think about in terms of that Venus-Pluto square as well. So again, you can write these down if you want, or pause the video, or whatever you want to do, right? So here we go. First question. What seeds of intention do I want to plant? So like, what do I want to grow? What do you want to grow in the Aries area of your chart, right? Which we're going to get to shortly. So what seeds of intention do you want to plant? Do you want to grow? And thinking in terms of those time frames that I gave you, what do I want to sort of see happen with that in 2 weeks from now? And where do I want to see it in 6 months from now? Where do I want to see the longer term outcome in like 2.5 years from now, right? All those pieces. All right, next question. What help or opportunities are present that can assist me with this? Where are the helpers? I used this phrase last week, right? I think there's a Mr. Rogers quote about that. Where are the helpers? And those areas where the sextiles are, so the Aquarius part of your chart and the Gemini part of your chart, right, are offering support. So look for the helpers. We talked about this in last week's video too, particularly the Gemini piece. So you can go back and revisit that. Okay, next question. Am I missing the obvious? So again, if you look to the Gemini and Aquarius houses, you might uncover something that you weren't, or notice something or realize something that you didn't really have your eye on, right? Like, are there people? Is there technology? Is there a group? Is there a friend? Is there a partner? Is there a method, a system, a piece of information, a class, a an action, that can support you in whatever it is that you're trying to grow. Okay, next question. What can I purge? So literally or metaphorically, right? In this northern hemisphere, again, it's sort of spring, and a lot of folks do the spring purge, the spring cleaning. So what can I purge, literally or metaphorically? Like, that could be old beliefs. It could be relationships that are not working for you anymore. It could be, modes of thinking. It could be clutter in your space. It could be all kinds of things, right? So literally or metaphorically, what can I purge to make room for the new to show up? Because if there's no room in your life for something new, it's like you're putting up a big barrier there, a big wall, right? And saying, nope, I don't want that. I don't want anything new. So think about that. All right, so we talked about, I'm going to get to the next question here. We talked about the fact that this is a very initiatory new moon in many ways, right? It's in a cardinal sign. It's in the first sign of the zodiac. So what initiations am I undergoing right now? And I wrote down here, hint, these may show up as something ending so something else can begin. And it's the way that life makes space, right, for other things. So there may be something ending in your life, either by your own accord, your own actions, your own intentions, or, because that's the grander plan, that you may not have control over. And that whatever that is, there can be some endings going on, but those endings are making way for new beginnings. So you can think about, like, that's often how we are initiated into things, is something ends so that something else can begin, right? All right, next question. How can I assert myself more? Like, how can I embrace those qualities of the brave warrior or the pioneer, those Aries qualities, right? Specifically in relation to the Aries house in your chart. We have 2 more questions. The next one is there medicine? And I didn't really talk about this too much, so I'll say a word about it just after I say this question. But is there medicine in the form of Libra house themes that I can utilize to assist with what I'm intending and attempting to grow or shift or renew in the Aries area of my chart, right? And that's because Aries and Libra are opposite signs. So if you're having issues in one area of the chart, or there's too much of that going on, right? It's helpful to look to the opposite sign for the kind of medicine, to the antidote, right? So bringing the qualities of Libra, which is, focusing on the other, focusing on relationship and harmony and justice and mediation and these kinds of things. But whatever house Libra sits for you, which will be opposite the Aries house, are there things there that I can draw on to help me, right, with this, with what I want to grow in the Aries area? And then the last question relates to the Capricorn and the Pluto in Capricorn, Venus in Aries square that I talked about. So what ongoing transformation is being triggered right now in that Capricorn area of your chart, right? And is there a way to bring a little bit of maybe tough love to that issue, because Venus is in Aries. And one of the things I think about with Venus, and I actually have Venus in Aries in my natal chart, Venus in Aries can be a little bit about tough love, right? Either that you're on the receiving end of, or you are having to enact yourself. So, and here I want to pause briefly and just talk a little bit about something that I posted recently on Facebook and Instagram that a lot of people responded to, either like right there or messaged me or whatever privately. But and if you haven't connected on those platforms and you want to, then the links to those are below too. But I posted this little meme that I did not create. It came from elsewhere. But on the difference between being nice and being kind, right? And sometimes being kind requires a little bit of tough love. So I think that we've all, most of us have really have been conditioned in many ways by our society, by our family of origin, you know, whatever, that being nice is more important. And or we conflate those two things. We think that being nice and being kind are the same thing. Like, I often see people post on social media, you know, be kind, be kind. And sometimes I think that some of those people don't really know what that means. Like, they think that being kind is the same thing as being nice, and it's not. And so I have this, the little post, the meme in front of me. So I'm just going to read from it for you, in case you didn't see it, and in case you haven't seen it. But so being kind, right? Or sorry, let's start with being nice. The being nice. When you're being nice, that's about wanting to be liked, right? You don't want to rock the boat. That's about wanting to avoid conflict. That's about being afraid to speak up. That is about prioritizing others. A lot of us, like, it's about the path of least resistance, what it says here. And I think, you know, if we've been raised in dysfunctional situations, codependent relationships, you know, these kinds of family dynamics that we're accustomed to, many of us are accustomed to, there is a focus. Oh, now Jack's in here wreaking havoc, so you can probably hear him scratching on something over there. Anyways, we are, you know, we've been conditioned to not want to upset other people. And so we end up sort of pretending, right? And pretending to, Jack. We end up pretending to, you know, we do all kinds of things. Like, we pretend to like people, or we pretend that something doesn't bother us, or we think we're responsible for other people's happiness, or we don't want to, you know, say something to upset or whatever. That's all about being nice. It's not really authentic, right? It's because it's not how we really feel. And sometimes, and I had this brief conversation with somebody on, I think it was Instagram, my friend Lynn, and so she made a good point. And it's like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but, you know, so it's like, sometimes I'm nice because like, you just don't want to deal sometimes, right? You just don't want to deal. I'm paraphrasing, and that's been my own experience. And for certain, I think sometimes you have to make the conscious choice to just not kind of rock the boat, but you know, for your own sake and whatever. But then on the flip side, we have being kind. What does being kind really mean? Being kind's not one-sided. Being kind is about your own sense of integrity and your own sense of self-worth, as much as it is about the other person or other people. So when we're kind, we want to be genuine, right? We want to address issues. You know, it's like, if you see something, say something. Don't be a bystander. When we're kind, we're willing to speak up. When we're kind, we're honoring ourselves and the other. And that is, like it says here, the path of authenticity, right? So food for thought there. And there's so much more I could say about that, but I'm going to leave it at that. And I thought it was relevant, to this Venus and Aries kind of situation and squaring Pluto and even all this Aries, like not just Venus, but all the Aries energy that's going on. But there is that we may, in some way in our lives, a dose of tough love may be required, right? And as long as you are doing it kindly, then that's okay. All right. So we're going to go through the signs. Incidentally, next week I'm going to talk about Venus again, but Venus is moving into Taurus. And Venus will be at home in Taurus. So she's really comfortable there, and that's going to be nice. So we're going to talk about that. And then we've got Mercury in a conjunction with the sun and a few other things. So come back for all of that. But right now, we're going to take it through the signs, and we're going to talk about the new moon in Aries and where it's sitting for you in your chart. And, I wanted to also talk about the square between Aries and Capricorn. That's just TMI, right? Too much information overwhelm. But you probably know, if you've been following astrology at all throughout 2020, and if you've been listening to me or other astrologers, you probably already know where Capricorn sits in your chart, what house it's in. And if you don't, you can, there's places online, like I've said before, where you can draw up a free birth chart if you have your birth details. I'm using whole sign houses in these forecasts, and generally in my readings these days, I've been using whole sign as well for the most part. And, you just need, like I said, your birth time. You can go to astro.com. You can go to AstroSeek. Those are two that are top of mind. Or you can, of course, you can have a reading with me or another astrologer, and we can help you with that. But look to the Capricorn area of your chart about that ongoing transformation piece. And then there's a trigger point happening, right? Between Capricorn house and the Aries house, which is what I'm going to talk to you about. So I'll tell you where the new moon is hitting for you, what house, what themes, and then, where you might find some help, which we kind of touched on last week, but I'm going to also focus on the Jupiter and Aquarius piece here. All right, here we go. We're going to start with Aries again this week because this is your new moon, Aries, right? This is your yearly new moon. So it's like your personal new year. When we have a new moon in our own sign, it's like our own personal new year. So if you are an Aries sun, this is like your solar return. And if you're an Aries rising, this is happening in your first house, which has to do with yourself, your physical body and wellness, your physical vitality, even your physical appearance. It has to do with how you project yourself out into the world, how the world perceives you, how you come at the world, those sorts of things, right? The first house it's a big deal. It's like, it's us. So, in this physical incarnation. So that's where the new moon is happening for you. And it's all about setting intentions around those themes, right? What do you want to grow between now and 2 weeks from now, 6 months from now, 2.5 years from now, like we talked about in the introduction, in relation to those first house themes, to you, to yourself, your physical body, all those things I just mentioned, right? And you can look for some helpers at this time from the Gemini and Aquarius houses in your chart, which for you are the 3rd and the 11th houses. So helpers in the form of maybe people in your community, siblings, neighbors, peers, cousins, friends that feel like family, helpers in the form of technology, and maybe like learning the basics as well, helpers in the form of things that come in like through commerce or marketing, and then helpers from the 11th house of friends and groups and associations and benefactors, you know, the people who can help you reach your goals, and your hopes and dreams for the future. So, you know, that's how that's all coming together for you at the time of this new moon, Aries. So I'm going to leave that there and move on to Taurus now. Aries, definitely, if you didn't see last week's video and the video on Aries season, I really suggest that you listen to those. All right, moving on to Taurus. So Taurus, for you, this new moon is hitting your 12th house. And this is a fresh start, right? A planting seeds of intention, a refresh, a new beginning in relation to things like how you relax, how you spend time in solitude, how you really revitalize yourself, you know? It can also have to do with the subconscious. It can have to do with our self-defeating behaviors, right? And habits. It can have to do with our spiritual health and life. And it can quite literally have to do with what we call places, you know, of confinement, or places that are sort of tucked away from the world, which can be things like spiritual retreat centers, hospitals, rehab facilities, retreats, you know, anything like that. So there is a, you know, you get to hit the refresh button here in that area of life. So think about, what are you intending to grow over the next 2 weeks, over the next 6 months, over the next 2.5 years in that area of life? Is there sort of a bad habit you're really wanting to kick? This would be a good time to plant the intentions for that, for example. And you've got helpers coming to you from the 2nd and the 10th house, right? Support through those sextiles between the Gemini and the Aquarius house. So Mars and Gemini and Jupiter in Aquarius. So you've got helpers coming from the 2nd house of your personal resources. So, and how you get your needs met, you know, how you use your skills and talents to make money. And personal resources can come in the time, or the form of your time and your energy as well. It can have to do with how you nurture your body, even through the food you eat, right? And grow and that sort of thing. It could have to do with your personal values and how you value yourself, your self-worth, how much you charge for your services, for example. And then also helpers in the form of the 10th house of your work and your public life and your public reputation, and perhaps like authority figures, or you know, father figures, or legacy, that sort of thing, right? It is very 10th house related. So those are where your helpers are at the time of this new moon. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move on to Gemini now. Gemini, for you, the new moon is happening in your 11th house. So, you know, what do you want to grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years in relation to your friendships, your connections, to the group, right? Clubs, associations, online networking, that sort of thing. Where are the, you know, what do you want to grow in terms of your hopes and dreams for the future and the people that can help you get there? And then, so what seeds of intention are you planting there, right? And for you, Gemini, Gemini rising, you're looking to the 1st house and the 9th house. Where are the helpers there, right? So that's because Mars is in Gemini in your 1st house, and Jupiter is in Aquarius in your 9th house, and they're making a sextile to this new moon, as I said in the introduction. And so the helpers can come in the form of you yourself and actions that you take, and your physical wellness and vitality and things that you do to support that, and your approach to the world, how you come at the world, how the world perceives you, right? So something helpful there can support these new moon intentions. And also the 9th house. your philosophy, your worldview, your belief system, learning and teaching of so this could be like a college, university, or it could be publishing, or it could be any sort of course or learning or study, that's sort of beyond the basics, right? It could also have it could be a teacher that can support you in some way. It could also be somebody who is at a distance, like foreign. The ninth house speaks to foreign cultures, foreign people and places, foreign travel, even things that you learn from people that are different from you in some way. And so that first house, ninth house are the areas of life that are lending support for you at this new moon. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there, Gemini. We're going to definitely listen to the questions and all the intro, the drill for context. So we're going to move to Cancer now. Cancer, this new moon is happening in your 10th house. So for you, it is an opportunity for planting seeds of intention as they relate to your public life, your career, your your public reputation, your the legacy you wish to leave, authority figures, relation to your own authority. These kinds of themes are very 10th house. So those are the seeds of intention, right? What do you want to grow here over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years? And then you're receiving help from the 12th house and the 8th house, because Gemini is in the 12th, so that's where Mars is, and Jupiter is in the 8th in Aquarius, and a positive conversation with this new moon for you. So look for the helpers in terms of 12th house themes of resting and recovering, and looking at maybe how you self-sabotage, right? Self-sabotaging behaviors and bad habits. Perhaps looking at endings in some way is the 12th house, and losses. Remember, I said in the intro, I talked about that whole notion of, we may, initiations may begin in the form of something ending so something else can begin, right? This can apply here. Or it can have to do with, looking for the helpers in, it could be a spiritual sense, 12th house, taking care of your spiritual health or connecting with some sort of spiritual community in some way, or belief, or just like the spirit world, if you're somebody that's into that sort of thing. Or it could also be something like, some kind of like a rehab facility, or a spiritual retreat center, or a hospital, or something like that, right? That could also, there could be help on offer there. Then we've got 8th house as also a place where help is on offer at the time of this new moon. And those are things like other people's money, right? So loans, insurance, taxes, mortgages, inheritance, these sorts of things. And that also encompasses your entanglements with other people. So your intimate connections, and it has to do with, psychological wounding healing. So like therapists, or any kind of like therapy like sort of process could be helpful right now. So, those are the 3 areas that are in this harmonious conversation at the time of this new moon for you, Cancer. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move to Leo now, where we've got the new moon in your 9th house. So Leo, for you, these seeds of intention, for you to plant, relate to things like, it could be foreign travel, foreign people and places is a 9th house, if that's, something that you're permitted to do wherever you're at right now, or your intentions maybe for doing that when the situation permits. It could also have to do with publishing. It could have to do with teaching and learning of a sort of higher minded variety, so higher level stuff, right? Like college, university, or anything beyond the basics kind of thing. Connecting with a teacher, or you being the teacher in some way. It could have to do with your philosophy, your worldview, your belief system, right? foreign people and places. Those are all ninth house themes. So there's something new that's calling to you, you know, planting some, to refresh or to plant some brand new seeds there that you will grow and nurture over the next, again, like I said, 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years. And there is help on offer for you here in terms of your 11th house and your 7th house, where Mars and Gemini are sitting and Jupiter and Aquarius are sitting for you. So help in the form of friends, groups, associations, online connections, benefactors, you know, people that can help you reach your goals, help in terms of your hopes and dreams and intentions for the future. And then also help from partnerships, from close personal relations. So like significant other or close friends and family members, or business partnerships and alliances that way, or contracts and agreements, right? So those two areas of the chart are offering support to whatever seeds of intention that you want to plant in your 9th house, which is Aries for you. So I'm going to leave that there for you, Leo, and I'm going to move on to Virgo now, where we've got the new moon happening in your 8th house. So for you, Virgo, whatever you're planting here, these seeds of intention that you want to plant and then nurture and bear fruit over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years, relate to your 8th house, which has to do with other people's money. So first and foremost, so other people's resources also, which can be, you know, money, time, energy, but it can be very much about things like income that comes to you through other people, like clients or partners, you know, spouses, or things like taxes, bursaries, insurance, wills, inheritance, loans, mortgages, all of those things. It also has to do with your intimate relationships with other people, right? Your entanglement with other people. And it has to do with, you know, I often refer to the 8th house. One of the themes there is kind of like the skeletons in the closet. So those deep psychological sort of issues, right? That may require some attention and some, you know, they cause you some wounding and some healing needs to happen there. Those kinds of things are 8th house. So 8th house is deep. So nevertheless, there's an opportunity here for something new, a new way of doing this area of life. And you are being offered support from the 2 places in your chart where Mars and Jupiter are right now, which are for you, your 10th house of career, public reputation, worldly ambitions, the legacy you wish to leave, your authority or authority figures, even father figures, and also the 6th house, which is your daily routine, your work routine, right? Whether that be paid or unpaid, the things you do on the day-to-day, your daily schedule, the checking off the ticky boxes is the 6th house. This can also come in the form of your routines around health and wellness, how you look after yourself. And it can have to do with pets as well in the 6th house. So those are the areas of life, the 10th house, 6th house, that are supporting you, offering you support in terms of what you want to, I'll use that word, manifest in terms of your 8th house, right? So I'm going to leave that there for you, Virgo, and move on to Libra now, where we have the new moon happening in your 7th house. Libra, for you, there's an opportunity for a fresh start, a renewal, planting some new seeds of intention in terms of your personal relationships, right? Those close one-to-one relationships in your life, whether that be like a spouse or a significant other. It could be a business partner or just close friends and family members. It can have to do with contracts and agreements here in your 7th house. So something new here that you are intending, and then the results of which will show up for you, you know, depending on the work you put in terms of the next couple of weeks, the next 6 months, the next 2.5 years, right? Those are the 3 time frames we talked about in the intro. So you're getting support for whatever this is, whatever seeds of intention that you are planting at the time of this Aries new moon. You're getting support from the ninth house and the fifth house. The ninth house speaks to themes of foreign people and places, other cultures, long distance travel or infrequent travel. It has to do with teaching and learning, publishing, these sorts of themes, right? So there is some help on offer there, some support or something good, an opportunity in that area. And then also in your fifth house, which has to do with what brings you pleasure, how you have fun in life. It has to do with children and all things surrounding children, your children or other people's children, or the whole idea of, pregnancy and birth and conception and all of that. And it's really about your individual creative sort of self-expression, right? Your individual creative projects, that kind of thing. So those are the two areas of life that are helping and are supporting these intentions, these new moon intentions in the seventh house for you, Libra. So, those questions I posed and everything in the intro can be helpful to you here. So I'm going to move on to Scorpio here, and we're going to talk about the new moon in your sixth house. So Aries sits in the sixth house for you, Scorpio. And so it's this sixth house, these sixth house themes of your daily routine, your work routine, whether it's paid or unpaid, your relationships with like subordinates, or you in that role as subordinate, right? How you are in service. It's about your wellness, and routines around that. It can be about pets. So this is where you have the opportunity to begin anew, right? To start something new, to refresh this area of life in some way. And you've got support coming from your eighth house of other people's resources. So other people's money, time, energy, things like mortgages and insurance and taxes and inheritance and, all that stuff, or business income, like from clients and such, maybe in the form of therapy in the eighth house, dealing with some of your skeletons in the closet, your intimate connections and relationships, right? Your entanglement with other people. This is very eighth house. So there's something going on here that is offering you an opportunity or some support with those sixth house fresh start, right? And then also you have support coming from Jupiter and Aquarius in your fourth house, which is your home, your family, your roots, your literal place of living, real estate ventures perhaps, or your sense of emotional security, potentially mother figures in your life as well, right? Or that sense of mothering. So this, those two areas, the fourth and the eighth house, are supporting your new moon intentions, for that sixth house in Aries for you. So I'm going to leave that there for you, Scorpio, and move on to Sagittarius, where we've got the new moon happening in your fifth house. So for you, Sagittarius, the fresh start on offer here, this new moon, the new moon seeds of intention relate to themes of how you have fun in life. I always use the phrase, what sparks joy for you, right? What brings you pleasure? Themes around children. So your children, other people's children that you're associated with or that you work with, themes around, childbearing, that sort of thing as well. Pregnancy. It can also be about your creative self-expression. Fifth house also speaks to sports, which I often forget to say, but it does. Hobbies, that sort of thing. So there's there's an opportunity for planting new seeds here to grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years, like we talked about in the intro. And you're getting some support here from two areas of your chart, right? Mars in Gemini in the seventh house and Jupiter in Aquarius in the third, speaking to the fifth house in harmony, right? To this new moon in harmony. So support may come in the form of close personal relationships, one-to-one relationships, supporter opportunities, right? So significant other, like business partnerships, close friends and family members, contracts and agreements. These are seventh house themes. And also third house, which is your immediate environment, communications, technology pieces, commerce, marketing, siblings, peers, these things and people may offer you some support. Learning, teaching and learning, usually we're talking about like early learning, so up to kind of high school level, or learning the basics, that kind of thing. So those two areas, the 7th and the 3rd, are supporting your new moon intentions in the 5th house. So that's for you, Sagittarius. I'm going to move on to Capricorn now. Capricorn, for you, the new moon is happening in your 4th house. So this is where you're looking to plant the seeds of intention at this Aries new moon. And the 4th house speaks to our home, our family, our roots, our ancestry, our place of living, like literally, right? Real estate, our sense of emotional security, our the nurturing figures in our life, mothering, that sort of thing. Sometimes parents, but oftentimes, like I see it as being related to the more kind of motherly figures. So this is where you have the opportunity to refresh, renew, plant some new seeds of intention there in relation to those themes that will grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years. And then you've got support coming to you from a couple different places in your chart, which are, in your case, the 6th house, which is where Mars and Gemini is, and the 2nd house, which is where Jupiter and Aquarius is sitting. And those are in harmonious conversation with the new moon. And so look for the helpers in terms of your routines, your day-to-day routines, checking off the ticky boxes and all the things you have to do on the day-to-day, your daily schedule, your work routines, right? Literally work if you do a paid job, or if you're even a stay-at-home parent or whatever, the routines that you do on the day-to-day, things that surround illness, health, your wellness in general, and how you're in service, sometimes pets in 6th house as well. And then, so there's support or an opportunity there, right? And then also the 2nd house, which is your own personal resources. So the money you make from your job, your skills and talents, right? Your business, whatever. It can have to do with your sense of self-worth and what you value, what your sort of core values are. And when we're talking about personal resources, this can be like our material possessions and that kind of thing as well. It can also be our time and energy, right? It can even speak to things like 2nd house can speak to like the food we grow and what we put in our bodies and that sort of thing as well. So, but very much about our resources, our personal resources. So that's, the 6th house and the 2nd house are what's supporting that 4th house new moon for you at this time. Okay, Capricorn, I'm going to leave that there. We got 2 more to go. So moving on to Aquarius right now. And Aquarius, for you, this new moon is happening in your 3rd house. So the 3rd house speaks to themes of your immediate environment and the people in it, and it also speaks to themes of communication and exchanges, so marketing and commerce, that sort of thing. But it can be about siblings, cousins, neighbors, peers, people that feel like siblings. It can be about the tools you use for communication, the style of communication, your self-talk even. It can be about short little kind of jaunts or trips, even daily commutes, but even, trips that you take more frequently that are closer to home kind of thing. It can be about learning and teaching of like an early years kind of, and when I say early years, I mean like not just kind of like, early learning environment like daycare or something, but about elementary school, high school as well, or things that you're learning that are kind of, the basics. But very much, again, like siblings could definitely be a factor here, for example. So that's where the new moon's happening for you, right? Is that 3rd house. That's where those seeds of intention, you're going to want to focus on that area of life. And then you have support on offer and opportunity on offer coming to you from the 5th house, which is Mars, sitting in Gemini, and the 1st house, which is Jupiter, sitting in Aquarius, speaking in harmony with this new moon for you. So you may look for helpers and opportunities in the form of children, or things surrounding children and pregnancy and childbirth, but like your children, other people's children, children you work with. Or the 5th house can be about what brings you pleasure or how you have fun in life, hobbies, that sports, your creative self-expression, creative projects and pursuits, right? And then also the 1st house of self, because Jupiter is in your sign. So encouraging you to work on the self here and your physical vitality and perhaps your appearance or your approach to the world, how you come at the world or how the world perceives you. These are all 1st house, right? It's all about you, the 1st house. So you very literally have a role to play here. You can support yourself with these new moon intentions, right? Along with whatever's going on in the 5th house. So that's for you, Aquarius. I think that's good. You can make sure to listen to the intro and those questions that will help you put this all in context. And last but not least, again, in this case, we've got Pisces. So Pisces, for you, this new moon is transpiring in your 2nd house. So an opportunity here for a new beginning, a fresh start, for a renewal, for planting seeds of intention that you wish to grow over the next 2 weeks, 6 months, 2.5 years in relation to your personal resources. 2nd house themes, right? So your money, your time, your energy, the money you make from your skills and talents is 2nd house. It can also be about, how you value yourself, your sense of self-worth and what your core values are. It can have to do with, so things like, I often think of like what you're charging for your services if you're somebody that's self-employed. It can also be about how you nurture your being through the nutrients you take in, like the food you grow and what you're putting in your body, that kind of thing. So that's where the new moon is happening for you, Pisces. And then you've got some support on offer, some opportunity that's coming to you, some helpers from 4th and 12th house. So 4th house is where Mars and Gemini is. 12th house is where Jupiter and Aquarius is for you. So look for helpers and opportunities that come in the form of home, family, real estate, place of living, your sense of emotional security, nurturing female figures, mother figures, parents, that sort of thing. That's all 4th house. And then 12th house, which is your, it could be endings and losses as 12th house, but it could be, and we talked about that in the intro, how sometimes an initiation requires an ending first, right? So that's a potential, but it could also, these helpers could come in the form of people or places that relate to places of what we call places of confinement. So, or things that are going on behind closed doors and in secret. But it could be literal places like rehab facilities or hospitals or hospices or spiritual retreat centers or, what else? Like detention centers, prisons, even those kinds of things. And, or the people that work in those kinds of institutions. Or it could be your spiritual helpers, right? Like 12th house is the unseen world, the spiritual world. Our dreams can be helpful to us right now, even, if you're a Pisces rising. It could be the 12th house often speaks to our bad habits, our self-sabotaging behaviors. And so maybe it's like when we're talking about something supportive here, it could be something that you've been tackling in that regard that is supporting your 2nd house new moon intentions, right? So, yep, 4th house, 12th house, those are where the helpers are and helping you with that 2nd house new moon. So I'm going to leave that there for you, Pisces, and that is all 12 signs. And I hope that you found this video helpful and not too meandering. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to share anything that's going on with you personally in relation to this new moon, then please do put it below, you know, in the comments section. And I will catch you next week. All right. Take good care. Bye for now.